Bing, 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 bing. Woo! We're live.
All right. Hello, Patriots. Welcome to the Stand United with Jack and Dennis. Please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
While we still can.
That's right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, hope you join us.
All right, got another week of being able to say the pledge before we get thrown in the hoosegow.
You never know what can happen. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm just getting over a cold, so my voice is a little off. Jack's going to talk about countries siding with China regarding the Chinese yen. Yuan yen, the same thing.
I think it's A1. A1.
And,
One, no two.
getting rid of the U.S. dollar across the world. And I'm going to talk about preparing ourselves for a future war on our soil. So Jack can start us off first this week. He never goes first.
That's
He was
good.
crying about it.
I get yelled at for taking up too much time. But I didn't take too much time today.
No, you did good.
All right.
Right to the point.
Yeah, well, for the first time in my life, I can truly say that I'm sad for this country. What went on Tuesday in Manhattan, we all know what happened. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things that happened that the news didn't cover while that was going on.
Of course.
Number one thing that happened that nobody knew or on. Stormy Daniels, the one that started this whole thing, owes Donald Trump over $400,000 for a defamation lawsuit that Trump won the same day he went and pleaded not guilty. The 9th District Court of California, which is not super conservative, sided with Trump, said she lost.
You know, the funny part is the judge says the last payment was $130,000. Over this hush money thing, $130,000.
Yeah.
She got to pay the same amount. $130,000. That's the last one. And then on top of the other ones.
Yeah. So I just want to go over a couple of definitions. Banana Republic.
That's what we are now, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Has social classes that are divided by wealth. These include a large poor working class and a small ruling class of elites made of the business, politicians, and the military. Political persecution is the persecution of an individual or group within society for political reason, particularly for the purpose of restricting or preventing their ability to take part in the political life of a society, thereby reducing their standing among their fellow citizens. Sounds like what we're doing right now, right?
Well, just disappointing in the military now.
You know,
Wish I had such a great military.
well, I'm going to go over it later, but, you know, the rank and file is okay. The folks that belong to the, you know, the bureaucracy or the terror
Officer ranks.
Yeah. The president of El Salvador, you know what he said about the United States?
He loves us?
No. He says it's a perfect place for his criminals. No. So the president of El Salvador, after Tuesday happened, he said, the United States can no longer speak of other countries' political persecutions, ever. And that's the truth. That is the truth. So while all of this was going on in Manhattan, there was another little thing that went on. I don't know if anybody heard about this. It's called BRICS, BRICS. And what does that stand for?
Brazil.
It stands for 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Their goal is to make a new currency. China is trying to make it theirs, Chinese yuan. If these 5 countries establish what they want to establish, they make up 41% of the world's population. All right? So we're talking about the United States greenback being replaced. And if you don't think that's important, here's the important thing. Every single drop of fossil fuel bought in this world is bought with the US dollar. It's called the petrodollar. On top of that, right now, 90% of the world's trade, country to country, is made with the U.S. greenback. 60% of the money placed in reserves in all of these countries around the world is the United States dollar. So if we start losing that, we're in a lot of trouble. The Russian economy depends on fuel. And when the cost of fuel is at $100 a barrel, what does Russia do? Russia attacks its neighbors. Syria, Crimea, Jordan, and now Ukraine. When it's $60 a barrel, which is what it was when Trump was in office, what do? Nothing. They can't afford to pay attention. We've been saying for a couple of podcasts now that India was straddling the fence. India is not straddling the fence anymore. India is now on China's side. All right?
China has 2 billion people. India has 1 billion people.
Yep. I mean, we're looking at bad things here. Saudi Arabia is now accepting the Chinese yuan.
Yeah.
Yuan.
One.
1 or 2.
All right.
Never 3, though.
I don't know who the hell's Juan is.
Yeah, well, I know he's got a cousin. We'll leave it.
Their soup's very good.
So, Saudi Arabia is now accepting that. Russia has been accepting the Chinese yuan, and they've been selling their fuel oil to China at a higher price the whole time. So, you have the only time we had something like this go on was when the euro was invented, when the EU came together and they came up with their own currency as the euro. Now, each one of them bills aren't the same. They're part of the same, they don't use the same euro. Germany has theirs and stuff like that, as far as I understand. The only thing that saved the United States from the euro was that it was just traded amongst the European nations. So the European nations still had to use the US dollar for foreign trade with other countries and to buy all their petrol. Any kind of fuel, they had to use the US dollar. And if you remember, we had told you that had started during the Nixon administration. Nobody knows how we got Saudi Arabia to agree with that. But Nixon said he got rid of the gold standard. Everybody went up in arms. Can't be part of the fiat. We're spending too much money, yada, yada, yada. So Nixon went over to Saudi Arabia, got this contract that all fuel has to be bought with the US dollars, called the petrodollar. Well, it's starting to fade. And this is what China's main goal was. For 100 years, they've been doing this, and it's coming through now. So you have to understand that our economy is in a lot of trouble. Now, OPEC Plus just announced that they're reducing production by over 1.5 million barrels of fuel a day. And they didn't pick this number by accident. That's the exact amount of barrels a day we need for the United States to put back in our reserves. So Biden said, don't do this right now. I'm in the middle of a campaign for the midterms. So they didn't. So now they are. So fuel is going to go up to $5 a gallon again. And that's why when OPEC Plus said we're not producing, we're reducing it by over 1.5, I think it's 1.6 million barrels a day, the White House said nothing. They couldn't say anything because they asked them not to do it before. And now, right in the middle of vacation time, bang, it happens. So it's not only during our vacation time, but you guys have to understand. We start getting fuel at $5-6 a gallon again at the fuel pump. Our banking system is in a lot of trouble. So this was strategically done. We can't put our strategic reserves back. We're going to be paying $5-6 a gallon at the pump again, right in the middle of a banking crisis of the United States, and inflation and everything else is still going high. So there you go, folks. While Trump is pleading not guilty 2 crimes that weren't specified in his indictment, because all of these 34 felonies had to be surrounded because of a felony that nobody put what the felony was to bring the rest of the 34 things into perspective.
And everything, the statute of limitations is over, long overdue.
Right. So there you have it. There's your problem with us not being energy independent, us not being leaders of the world, the free world, us not having a strong military, us having a buffoon in the office, and us having the administrative state being run by a bunch of progressives that don't know anything about the United States government.
We have lost our place in the world.
Yes.
Every morning I get on my computer, sometimes at work, sometimes at home, start my day by reading the news.
I always do it at work.
Do you?
I figure I should get paid for it.
When I get to work, it's kind of a left-leaning. I listen. I read MSN and Yahoo News. I mentioned before that I don't just look at conservative information. I try to get articles from both sides. And what I read every day is nothing but despair, gloom, and destruction. Drug pandemic, active shooter pandemic, human trafficking, gangs, Trump, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, high inflation, energy dependence instead of independence. What the hell has gone wrong?
Another little thing for you to know on that too. Manhattan, on their felonies in Manhattan, because this guy Brad reduces 52% of all their felonies down to misdemeanor. Out of the 48% of the felonies that remain, only 50% of them turn into convictions. So of the grand total of 100% of the felonies committed in Manhattan, less than 25% of them turn into convictions. But you can all sleep good because Trump got indicted. Because nobody's again above the law except for the other 75% people that in Manhattan commit crimes.
That's right. I can't see why we're even a country today. I mean, we are. We're not powerful
Not on the southern
anymore.
border, we're not.
Not on the southern border. We're on the cusp of what I see, what I think we'll see in the very near future. I'm not talking 6 months. I'm talking within 5 years. We're going to see countries trying to wipe each other off the map. Several will be looking to wipe us off the map. Said it before, I think by 2025, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, by no means. I'm just an average moron trying to make an honest buck. It's just my prediction to what I have been reading on the news. I feel we'll be at World War III. And as Americans, we need to start preparing ourselves now. Because when it does, not if, but when it happens, this war will reach our soil.
God forbid.
There are many reasons why I believe this will happen. First, Jack mentioned a little while ago, our current Democrat administration, starting with Creepy Joe, it's been shown to American citizens that his family, in fact, did take money from China.
A lot of it.
Why would he threaten the hand that feeds him? If he makes it to the next election as our president, that is going to win the next war will start. Just remember this, just over two short years ago, this country had energy independence. And now we must rely on OPEC countries to get our oil. Jack mentioned it just a few days ago, OPEC cut oil productions over 1 million barrels a day. He said prices will be a lot higher soon. Where they're going to be, no one knows. What happens when we go to war? No one will be able to get fuel except the countries that have aligned with China and Russia. But we can have energy independence right here. But the democratic liberal people right now push for this new energy, this new South, this new power, whatever I want to call it. Green New Deal. Just look at California. They don't even have power to do what their electricity is now for electric cars. This crazy man we have in office right now has sent this country into a downward spiral. And I don't see us getting out anytime soon. The next problem I see is with our politicians, who in my opinion are cowards, and the reason why this nation is so divided. We're not national anymore, we're sectionalism. We're not patriotism anymore, we're sectionalism. That's what our politicians want. They're unprofessional. They have no business running this country. They're failures. They hide behind their desks. And when the next war starts, they'll hide right behind it. That's the second problem. Next problem is China and Russia. They've stated over and over again they hate the United States and want to see us fail. They are currently getting their way. This Chinese yuan.
One.
Yes, what I said. Through lackluster politicians in office, it's leading to a failure of the American people. They're failing us, folks. Jack mentioned earlier about these countries lining up to China because they now believe China will be the next world leader, not the United States. We never thought I would see it. Today that would happen, but we're close. All because of our retarded politicians. Russia threatens all the time that they will fire nuclear weapons and send them to this country. They're out of the nuclear arms treaty. They don't care anymore. They want to see us destroyed. Look at last year. The Army alone missed its recruiting goal by 15,000 soldiers. If you don't think our adversaries know this, you're very naive. They know China knows our military installations because this administration failed to shoot down a balloon for 7 days all over the country looking at military installations.
Got every other weather balloon after that, though.
Yep.
Nobody knew what the weather was.
You know,
And my grandkids balloons.
I'll add North Korea and Iran into problem number 3.
Mm.
They hate us as much as the other two.
Maybe more so.
How can the United States fight a war on 4 fronts? China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, possibly India. We can't even prepare to fight one with our military today.
And if you don't think India is going to be dragged into this, don't fool yourself that Russia has them over a barrel now, so to speak. No pun intended.
I don't trust our military anymore. Since our military has been recruiting issues, you know what's going to happen when a war breaks out? The draft will be reinstated. We send people who hate this country to war. What are you going to do then? They're just going to lay down their arms. We need people who want to serve. That's why I'm saying we must prepare ourselves now before we reach that point. I honestly believe that some politicians want war. They like death and destruction, and it's pretty sad. But did you know that 72 million people in the United States were born owning a gun? That was in 2020.
Yeah, I think there's more.
I think it's over 100 million now.
Yeah.
In fact, American civilians own 393 million guns altogether. I'm not the biggest gun advocate. I like guns. I own 2. That works for me. However, every single person, male or female, who wants to own a gun should own a gun. To me, guns are good and bad. But we get that right under the United States Constitution, under the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights. We've all read it. If you're a gun owner, you believe in it 110%, just as I do, just as Jack does. And we've all read it before. Regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
2 sentences.
Yep, 2 sentences.
2 sentences, and there's no exceptions.
None.
Unlike what Biden says, where you're not allowed to have a machine gun, you're not allowed to have a flamethrower. Doesn't say what you are or what you're not allowed to have. It says you are allowed a weapon, firearm.
What is this president and politician trying to do to us right now? Take that right away from you and me, so we can't fight back. That's why the Second Amendment was created, to fight back against the deranged government that we have.
Mm.
Our founders, they knew this was going to happen at a point in time in history. That's why they put that in there. This deranged person running this country did not rule out gun confiscation. That is unbelievable. If you're a gun lover, go out and buy the gun you want. Take some gun courses. Take some, they're always good. Get the ammunition you need and the guns you need to keep your family and your friends safe. Not only from these threats from these adversaries, but also this government, who are tyrants and want to disarm you so we can't fight back. I believe this government is our biggest threat right now. A threat to our democracy and a threat to every American living in this country, whether you own a gun or not. Prepare yourself now before it's too late. Be a patriot, not a sheep. of these political parties and cowards. They just want you to follow them, and they're not the answer, folks. Check.
Right. This is not my conclusion, but I just wanted to let you know. Going back to Dennis's nuclear arms treaty. So there was a treaty. It was called the New START Treaty, and it was going to expire in the year 2021, the month of February 2021. And it stated Russia would have 45% nuclear arsenal subject to numerical limits. The United States, 92%. China, not even mentioned. Nor was any other country. So the Trump campaign administration was trying to change this treaty, and they were working on it. And Russia went like this. We're going to wait and see what happens at the next election. If he wins, we're going to have to work on this. If they don't win, well, Trump didn't win. And in February of 2021, Biden signed it with those numbers, 45% to 92%. So 92% of the United States nuclear arms are shackled with a numerical limit, and Russia's is only 45%, but they're not even listening to it anymore. They're not, they could have put any number. You could have put 1,000%. You're not allowed to touch it. With this administration, they don't care.
Right.
So that's what we got leading this country. And if I was ever to run for a president, you need military guys. But I tell you, I would question putting anybody in any kind of head of department or secretary that was that was at the rank of colonel. Definitely nobody above it. Because these generals are part of the administrative state. They're part of the bureaucracy. General Mathis, 4-star general in the Marines, complete and total patriot. This man's seen war up front row seat. When the Trump administration sent a missile and killed the general of Iran's army, Soleimani, Mattis was beside himself. You can't do this. If you do this, Iran's going to start thinking this. Dude, the United States just sent a missile from 5,000 miles away, planted it through that guy's windshield, took his head off, blasted his car. Not one person next to it got affected by it, and you're worried about what Iran's going to think? Are you shitting me? How can you worry about what any other country in this planet is going to worry about what the United States is doing when we can pull something off like that? Stop worrying about these other countries and what they think we're doing, and start worrying about what your constituents want, what the American people want and need. I tell you, these are big parts when we start getting ready for the 2024 campaign. Start seeing who's going to be part of these cabinets. Because if you got a guy that's lived his whole life in the administrative state, which this Mattis spent many, many, many decades in it, I'm not selling the guy short that he's a patriot, but his thought process was changed. And he was worrying about these other countries over and beyond what the American people needed to do.
General Milley, whatever, and Secretary Austin were at Senate hearings, correct? Congressional hearings last week.
Mm-hmm.
A couple senators asked them, or a congressman asked them some questions, and they didn't even know the answers. These are two top people, and I think they were on woke policies. They said, we didn't know they were being, our soldiers were being traded in woke policies.
Well,
they signed off on it.
Mayorkas is the Secretary of Homeland Defense.
Yep.
And what was that guy that was the lone survivor? He's now a congressman. He had asked these two, the Secretary and the General Milley, if you had this was your orders to do, everything that Mayorkas was supposed to do, would you or would you not have your rank and your job stripped away from you?
Oh, yeah.
And they said, yeah, it would be. So they're like, what are we doing then with the southern border? How can you say that the military shouldn't be on our southern border when you're saying that the Secretary of Homeland Security is not doing his job? And their answer was, we can't say for that, but yes, if we did what he's doing in our job, we would not have a job anymore.
Yep.
They would have been stripped of their command. Bing, done. You're out.
But it's our fault.
Yes.
It's our fault for letting these politicians lie to us every day.
There's a book written about that. It's called Politicians Gaslighting Americans.
Oh, who wrote that?
A couple of dopey guys.
Oh. When's it coming out?
There's a guesstimate of 3 months.
Awesome.
There's the who's it called right there.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Got copyright for politicians gaslighting Americans. They said it could take up to 6 months to come out, but it'll probably come out about 3 months, I'm thinking. Politicians and gaslighting Americans. I think it was a fun book to write, and got a lot of comments back. So hopefully it's a success. So even though we need to be ready for whatever comes our way, we do have a few bright spots that could be beneficial to us and maybe our allies. Not that I have much faith in NATO on this next part, but we'll see. Finland became part of the NATO community on Tuesday. Now that they've joined the NATO border, nearly doubled with Russia's border. We added 830 miles of NATO border now. That's a lot of land. I think it's like almost 1,800 miles. I mean, now Russian borders, more NATO countries than I imagine the Canadian can handle right now.
That's why he signed up with China.
Got Poland and Lithuania on the Kaliningrad region, and Norway, Eastern Latvia and Estonia, and now Finland. I would say this is a big win for NATO. Not sure what they're going to do with it. But their strength in numbers, I've been told. Now the Philippines, they're actually a bright spot. Philippines, they want to be friends to everybody. They don't want any enemies. But they made a deal with the United States so that will allow 4 military installations in that country. They're going to be located in a Baalbek Island in Palawan. I think that's Luzon province. Naval Base Camilo Osias in Santa Ana, Cayugan province. Lalo Airport in Cayugan. And Camp Melchor de la Cruz in Gamo, Isabela. That's a huge deal. With all the tensions going on with China and Taiwan. Because we're close enough to Taiwan to be able to help them out. I think military installations help communities where we go. We build them up. People come in, stores, all sorts of big companies come in to support. So that country's those 4 areas they're gonna be built up really nice. Hopefully this sends a message to China. It says, hey, we're here to protect another ally, namely Taiwan and the Philippines. I think it's a big win, but again, we'll see what the U.S. will do with this achievement. We're also supposed to build a military base in Poland that was started under Trump. And this administration, I know they're trying to make it a reality. I haven't heard anything about it lately, but they are trying to get a base in Poland. They want us there. See, we can get our world power back. We just need leaders in office that can help achieve that. And all these people we have right now, they're not our leaders. Stay tuned as we learn more about bases and if the other countries will assist us and hopefully rejoin our coalition. I don't believe China and Russia really care, but it does put them on notice. So we're just about done, Jack. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I got a few things. The 2 first things I want to do is quotes from Reagan talking about freedom in 1964. Those who have the most to lose do the least to protect them, the freedoms. And all evil needs to win is for good men to do nothing. And that's saying a lot.
And that's Satan is in our back door.
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning of the show, I was sad for my country, and this is what the American people need to start getting people who run our government, local and national, who are willing to put country and the people first before themselves and before these other countries. Maybe if Alvin Braggs had to read the Constitution while attending law school, he would have realized that what he's done was un-American and illegal. You know, the administrative state has got us really bad right now. And just to show you a little point of it, perfect example of the administrative state squashing free thinkers is Vice President Pence will not appeal the ruling requiring him to testify on the January 6th events. Because they said to him, listen, first they found his classified papers in his house. And then they said, you see what we're doing to your buddy? He can afford $200-300 million in law fees. You can't. We expect to see you here. And he's going to go. The reason why I believe politicians today, they don't trust themselves to lead through the American founding fathers. They don't understand the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, and what this country was founded on. They don't have faith in their leadership, so they go to these other countries and they ask and they listen. These other countries want this, they come back, we have to do this. Again, matters. Worrying about what Iran's going to think about us when we kill their general. Well, we're killing his general because he's killing American troops on the ground. Why do we give a shit what Iran thinks about killing his general? It's a wake-up call. Iran? I mean, we did it in Lebanon with Gaddafi. Sent it through his living room window, killed his son. Didn't hear from the guy for 40 years. It's the same thing. And here's the saddest part. So far, we have Putin, Xi from China, and now Biden. All had their political opponents thrown into jail.
See a pattern?
See a pattern? Well, we're not really sure about Xi. That guy might have been killed. But on the face of it, these three world leaders had their opponent go to jail. United States opponent for president was brought to jail and booked in front of everybody for everybody to see. You don't think that that's political persecution? You don't think we're living in a banana republic? This is a very sad state, folks. We have the president of the United States got his opponent, the number one in the opposition party, put in jail.
You know, if you're a Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, independent, stop worshiping these false gods called politicians.
Well,
They are
independents
nothing.
of the Democrat Party now.
They are nothing. These politicians are just crazy lunatics.
They're afraid to make their own decisions. They are literally going to another continent, which we fought over 200 years ago to free ourselves from, for their advice. I mean,
There used to be patriots back then.
I'm reading Mike Pompeo's book, and he said when he was Secretary of State, he would get these maniac calls in the middle of the night from his diplomats around the world, calling up, Mr. Secretary, the other 24 countries are signing this, and they want us to sign it, and the whole world's going to sign it except for us, and this is going to make us look real bad that the next time you go meet with them, the only thing you're going to be talking about, and he used to hang up on them. Good, let them other countries do it. We're not. It's not for the American people. Tell you, there's a big problem up there in the Arctic Circle. Russia and China are trying to get nuclear weapons up there and the rights to the fuel. And we're letting them. We're letting them because our leaders are afraid to lead. And why are they afraid to lead? Because exactly what Dennis says at the end of every podcast, knowledge is power. And they refuse to educate themselves on what this government was founded on.
Yep. So with all this craziness going on, not only in this country, but around the world, it can put us under severe stress. Looking over the news every day drives me crazy. Sometimes I yell at the computer and say, this can't be happening. But it really is. This is something you really can't even make up. But we see it every day. If you get stressed and annoyed, remember, you're not alone. There are millions of people out there, just like us. Those people who are not brainwashed by news, media outlets, and these politicians. The problem is most don't know where to turn and talk about what's happening to them in their area they live. Get away from that idiot box called the TV. I love that. Jack said that a couple years ago and it still sticks with me. Because that's right. These kids today, they spend hours and hours, several hours, playing their Xbox or whatever they play. They don't get out. People today, even adults, are playing that Xbox. Get out of your house. Find out what your neighbor's doing. They're going to have the same problems you are. Problem is, there's too many sheep out there that just want to follow others. We can't be like the sheep. We need to be leaders and lead others to make the right choices by educating them. Most won't listen because they're scared and they're brainwashed by news media. Talk to the ones who will listen about how we can fight to get our country back. It all starts with becoming a patriot. Who know the time now is to rise up. Stand united. Join our grassroots effort because it takes millions to make change a reality. You never know what can be achieved if you put one step forward and commit to a movement bigger than you. We're on Stand United with Jack and Dennis on our podcast. We're on United States Constitution. Yeah, you say it.
Easy for you to say.
United States Constitutional Group on Facebook. Independent Constitution Party on Facebook.
fedupwithpolitics.com is the website.
Yep, fedupwithpolitics.com. Mike, can you lead us in prayer?
Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 and 32. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Let's pray. Please, Lord, bless and protect this new party, this podcast, and all that work on it, and all that listen to it. Lord, have mercy on this nation and have our leaders do your will. Lord Father, you have taken our sin and put them far away from us, as if we had never sinned, for the sake of Jesus, our Redeemer. Yet still we fall victim to anger, wrath, and malice toward others. Despite your loving example, we live in a world full of anger, and we find forgiving difficult. In times of violent emotions, help us remember your unending forgiveness and treat others with the kindness and compassion that you showed to every one of us throughout our life. We pray this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Most people have lost faith in God. Let's pray that he helps us win back our country from these tyrants and cowards. I also saw something on Facebook today which kind of annoyed me. People were putting up that Jesus is not real, the Bible is fake. You need to prove to me otherwise. No. My faith is rock solid. If you don't believe in God, you don't believe in Jesus, you don't believe in anything that the Bible says, you need to prove to me that it's not there. That I'm wrong, because I'm not.
Cat's doing the Leafs.
Good going, Jack. Do your own research of what we talk about every show. We're not liars. We don't know it all. And remember, knowledge is power, like Jack said earlier. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Good job.
And maybe he asks, what happened to me? That's happened.